Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. Tonight we are recapping the week's nerdy news from Madripoor to the picket lines and everywhere in between. My name is Mike Gibson. With me as always, Steve Haller. What's up, and away, Steve?
Well, we seem to be just living in Hollywood lately. You know, we normally live in Hollywood with what we talk about, but it seems like all the news is coming directly out of some major happenings in Hollywood right now.
Like real events, not fictional.
Right, not once upon a time in Hollywood, like legit from Hollywood, California, and
not multiverses,
Burbank,
our
California.
specific universe. Yeah. Right. So we have a pretty big show tonight, or a lot to talk about tonight. And as I said on the Instagram video I posted earlier, this is maybe the last big week of news we have to talk about for quite some time because of the strikes, now plural, which we're going to get to in a second. We're going to talk about the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strike. We're going to talk about new cast members coming to the film Superman Legacy. We're going to talk about some other DC stuff, new trailer for Blue Beetle. I saw a film called Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'll give some spoiler-free thoughts on that. We're talking about Wolverine, looking like Wolverine, and we got some comic stuff, as always. I do really quick just want to shout out, because this event I've mentioned a couple times in this is getting closer. I'm going to be selling comics. My own comics, I should say. I'm going to be a vendor at an upcoming Star Wars / Star Trek themed burlesque show happening in Syracuse, New York at the Palace Theater on August 12th. The event's called Trek Wars. It's being put on by a burlesque duo called the Cinesisters. So if you follow the Cinesisters on social media, or if you look up Trek Wars burlesque show on eventbrite.com, you can get tickets. Tickets are available right now. It's going to be 2 full acts full of awesome burlesque performers coming out, either dressed as a Star Trek character or a Star Wars character. And before the show and during intermission, there's going to be like a mini comic convention going on in the lobby. I am going to be one of the tables at that mini con. So check that out. Just wanted to mention that. Also wanted to mention that this show is brought to you by Funky Town Comics and Vinyl in the town of Camillus, New York. This is our second week having a sponsor.
Yep.
I think it's going good so far. We actually have some comic reviews that we're going to be doing later in the week. We got some.
By later in the week, he means later in the episode.
I mean later today.
Technically, it is later in the week. That's how time works. However, we're going to be talking about it within the hour.
Yes, I'm not wrong, but I did misspeak. Within the hour, we'll be talking about reviewing some upcoming books that are coming out this week. We got advanced copies of from our partners at Funky Town Comics, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, all that business out of the way. Diving into Strike Watch, which is a little segment we started when the WGA was about to go on strike, and now SAG-AFTRA, Screen Actors Guild, actors from television, radio, as well, they're all on strike. They could not reach an agreement after extending the deadline for like 12 days or something. They still didn't come up with anything. Right before they announced that SAG was going on strike, there was a Deadline article that came out. There was an unnamed studio exec that gave this quote to the Deadline. Basically, the article was saying in general, like, regardless of whether or not the actors go on strike, studios don't have any plans to sit down with the writers anytime soon. And this one quote regarding the WGA strike, again, came from an unknown studio executive, said, quote, "The end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses."
Mm-hmm.
That was a legit quote that someone thought that would be a good idea to give that quote to a major news outlet. It's wild.
And something that crazy, you would initially think like, oh, it might not be, but I mean, it's Deadline. They're usually pretty reliable as far as reporting, and and whatnot. So it's not like they just threw that one out there. Like
exactly.
That's probably a legit quote that somebody actually said to them.
Yeah, and not off the record. They would not
Right.
print on that. That's a legit, yes, you can say this, just don't put my name to it. And
Right.
that person is really glad they didn't put their name to it because, wow, that's heartless. That's some heartless shit right there. But I feel like in a lot of cases, we're dealing with heartless people. As we know, we're dealing with corporate greed in its in some of its biggest forms. So, yeah, not cool. I think, was it the midnight of the 12th? I think the 12th of August was the last, was the final day. And so it wasn't officially announced until the next day, but it was clear that the actors would be going on strike. I guess the unions had to meet and make it official the next day. But I believe it was that night, or I don't know, maybe it was the next day. I'm like, it was reported like the cast of Oppenheimer all walked out during their premiere when they heard that the SAG was going on strike. So like, actors take this seriously. Union members are taking this seriously, as they should. There's been a lot of actors from, you know, all levels, you know, working actors, background actors, up to somebody like Matt Damon, who I heard gave a very, you know, we have to stand, we have to make sure that we are holding out until we get a better deal for those of us that are working actors, for our members that are working actors. And he's not talking about himself. He's a multimillionaire. He doesn't need,
he could do whatever.
He could do whatever, but at the same time, he's an example of actors that are being outspoken and saying, nope, this is what we have to do. We're on strike because, you know, not all of us are multimillionaires like myself.
So that the people that first quote was about, that are going to lose their houses and their food and whatnot are not as affected. Yeah, for sure. Did you see the video that Ron Perlman posted by any chance? Yeah,
that was going around.
Yeah. Talk about fiery.
Look up on.
We even though we're not a kid-friendly podcast, we still cannot repeat what Ron Perlman stated.
Yeah, I can say one thing that he said. It was a response to the quote about we're gonna, you know, let these union members lose their apartments and houses. He, looking directly into camera, talking to Studio's CEO, said, "Hey, there's more than one way to lose a house."
Yeah,
basically like threatening to burn down their mansions.
Yeah, that's
wow. That dude is hardcore.
Yeah. Hellboy,
so
you could say.
Yeah, true to his name. Chief demands among both unions. They're striking for increased minimums for their lowest paid members. They want protection from replacement and duplication by AI systems, which are getting dangerously more popular. And they also want streaming residuals that fall in line with television residuals. Now, like, residuals are, you know, fees and, you know, money that you get paid the more your show is on the air. You wrote an episode of a show, it's in reruns, you get paid every time it's on reruns. You get, you know, if
the reason Jerry Seinfeld is still getting paid for syndicated episodes.
Exactly. Yes, it used to be like before, like streaming. It's like if you were in a network show and it got picked up for syndication, meaning it was going to be on like reruns every day when kids get home from school, like you were set. But streaming services don't abide by those same residual rules. And a matter of fact, streaming services don't even issue the number of people that watch that show ever. Like Netflix started it. Netflix was like the first big game in streaming. And they never announced any of their numbers, clear numbers. Like how many people are actually watching Stranger Things? We don't know. How many people are actually watching whatever movie that you're talking about? We don't know. No one, and no streamers do that. And there's two explanations for that, really. It's either that, you know, I read something similar to this online and it made a lot of sense to me. So I figured we might as well talk about it while we're talking about the strike. It's either that the numbers of views are huge, and they're so huge that they owe tons of residuals to these actors and writers and everybody, crew members, you know, that they're just not paying. And they're getting away with keeping those profits because and not paying everybody, or the numbers are so small that they're just hiding them to further like bolster their own image. Kind of like trying to over justify their own existence while steering the industry towards total collapse,
Right.
which is what we're kind of looking at right here. Like, Steve, you and I have talked about ever since David Zaslav took over Warner Brothers and started canceling stuff and throwing stuff in the garbage for no reason to save money. We kind of looked at that as like, yeah, the streaming bubble is burst. Like, people are realizing they're not making enough money. They're sinking hundreds of $1 millions into a movie that people watch once over a weekend and then never think about ever again. Like, that's not a good business model.
Zaslav himself could have hypothetically saved at least a couple of movies, because I don't know if you saw, but earlier today it came out. He's made $458 million over the last 5 years.
Yeah. Yes.
He's the highest paid executive in the industry by $100 million. It's not even close.
Yeah, like Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, was like number 4 on that list or something. Like
5, I think.
He was like 4 or 5. Yeah,
insane. It was the 2 Netflix guys, the guy who runs WWE and UFC, I think was 3, or it was, either way, like him and the 2 Netflix guys were in between Zaslav and Iger. And Iger was at like 100 and something, which is still ridiculously stupid money.
It is wild.
Comparatively, it's like, what is Zaslav doing?
Well, this is a bit of a tangent, but because we're talking about the amount of money that these studios have and are claiming poverty, I bookmarked this thread on Twitter, and it's not that long, but I'm going to read it. It's from a guy named Daniel Powell. It says, if you are curious about a way Hollywood hits that make way more money than they cost, still somehow are reported as losing money, thus denying profit participation to the creators, here's one way. Most movies have a dedicated LLC formed to handle the business of the film. You typically see the name of it somewhere in small print near the end of the credits. This LLC is usually created by the studio. So a studio creating its own LLC to finance a film. He goes on to say, when the film is financed, the studio loans the money to the LLC with interest. So even when the LLC has paid off all production costs, the initial profits go to paying off the studio's loan to itself. If the studio created the LLC, it often has the contractual power to renegotiate the terms of the loan indefinitely. So if there is ever a danger of the film actually paying off the loan, they can just increase the interest rate. Therefore, on a highly successful film, the studio makes a ton of money on the interest from loaning money to its own subsidiary. But on paper, the film is in perpetual debt and is never technically profitable in a way that benefits profit participants even decades later.
How in the hell is that legal?
How is that legal? That is a scam and a half, man. Scam and a half. Because I saw John Cusack tweeted, he's been very active on Twitter. I know Twitter is dying, but if any of you out there want more like on the ground knowledge of this strike and like what actors are going through, what writers are going through, some great people to follow on Twitter. John Cusack has been tweeting about it like crazy. Stephen DeKnight, writer for Buffy and Angel and Daredevil, he's been tweeting about it a lot. There's some really great resources on social media. And I saw John Cusack tweeting about Say Anything and how that was a movie that is still being reported as at a loss despite coming out 30 years ago or whatever. And he, still gets his residual checks from it, but the studio is clearly claiming poverty on that movie, still making money off of its loan to itself for Say Anything a long time ago. Same with Men in Black. I read a couple people talking about that too. So some dirty pool the studios are playing while still crying foul and claiming poverty and not wanting to pay writers and actors fair shake. One of the biggest things, as far as the AI is concerned, apparently this came out when Fran Drescher, who's president of SAG-AFTRA,
who I hadn't thought about Fran Drescher for a long time, and
quite some time.
I listened to that
speech she gave.
Yeah, I was going to say monologue, but yeah. And it was like, yeah, okay, like she may not be acting anymore, but she's killing it.
Yes, yeah, she gave a very impassioned speech when the union was announcing that they were going to be going on strike. Apparently something that the studios proposed to SAG-AFTRA during negotiations, that all background actors, and just side note, background actors make up 60% of the SAG-AFTRA union. Like we said, not everybody's Matt Damon, not everybody's Jennifer Lawrence or whoever. Background actors make up most of the union. The studios want background actors. They're saying the background actors could be paid for 1 day's work, be scanned digitally for their likeness, and then the studios would be able to own their likeness forever and use it in any form without any additional pay or consent. They also said that they don't think that they should have to pay or get permission to use AI or digital doubles for anyone who is dead.
Yeah. I'm going to call bullshit on this one. And it's funny because there's another industry that we talk about on a weekly basis that effectively had this happen to it, where Marvel and DC and all of that, any of their creations from all of the artists are all proprietary to the company.
Those and not to, they're all work for hires. Yeah.
Right. So what, like,
but you're talking about the difference between Batman, who's a fictional character,
and a
real life person.
Yeah.
Saying that, I'll pay you for 1 day, take a digital picture of your face, and then I'll just put you in whatever, the sequel to, I'll put you in Avatar 100%. 3 in the background without telling you or paying you. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's, I mean, in my brain, I was equating the fact that we've already had an industry go through something similar to this, where it's like, of course, they shouldn't agree to it. There's nothing that would say they ever should. And
no, of course not.
So like, go look at comic artists from the 60s and 70s and see like how much, not Lee and Kirby and whatever, but like John Q. Public's estate is worth now, even though he, invented Martian Manhunter or whoever. Come on. There's no,
that's just insane.
It's just dumb. It's, how could the studios possibly think that they would agree to that?
Anybody would go for that. I know.
Oh, we'll give them like $200. It's fine.
It's a play to literally erase the job of background actors.
Right.
And to just never have to pay any background actor ever again.
Yeah.
And to just ruin the industry, like the acting industry, for sure. Like that's just such a terrible idea. And also like
those background actors, expand in their careers, and like people don't always start as leading roles. It's like,
exactly.
You're killing your farm system here. It's like in baseball, if they just cut the, AA, AAA, single A teams like out of the equation. Like, what are you doing? All the training that you're doing is gone.
And they're doing that same thing. I mean, we talked about this a little with, we talked about AI when the writers first went on strike, because the studios were saying like, oh, we'll just use AI to write scripts. Like, I just read a quote earlier today from Simon Pegg, was asked about it when he was doing promotion for Mission Impossible, and he said, sure, AI might be able to write a script, but it's going to be terrible because AI hasn't had life experience. It's only looking at what is already out there. So it's never going to come up with anything original. It's all just going to be mediocre. And like great art is a fight against mediocrity. So like, I think he said something like, AI has never had a childhood trauma. AI has never had its heart broken. Like AI doesn't have life experience to draw from to make great art. It's only just going to be cannibalizing stuff that already exists, which is just going to lead to a ton of mediocrity. They're entirely right. And it's the same thing with this. Like, you're just going to start digitizing everyone. Like, movies already look super fake. Like, I don't need the actors to start looking super fake, even if they're just a waiter in a background scene. Like, you're shooting yourselves in the head, studios. I don't understand. Just to save money and line your own pockets.
Yeah, and to keep the sports analogies going, we just had Brian Rollins in the chat mention it's very similar to what we just went through in college sports with the NIL stuff, where for years the NCAA has been able to get away with using the likeness of all these college athletes who are quote unquote amateurs, and not a exact parallel, but for years they were able to get away with the using the name, image, and likeness of these kids, and none of the kids could use their own. Like Syracuse, we're local to Syracuse here for anyone listening. Syracuse got put on probation for their basketball program for a couple of kids working at the YMCA down the road, and some other there was other things going on, but it's like one of the violations was kids working during the summer at a YMCA. And it was like, none of this makes sense. Like EA Sports, a major conglomerate in video games, used to put these college sports games out, and not like they would have all the statistics for the players in, but not put their names in and not have to pay anybody or anything outside of the NCAA. And it's just like same kind of concept where it just isn't right, and it just doesn't make sense. But
you all have billions of dollars. Just pay people. Just pay people. That's it. Just pay people. And like I've read a bunch of quotes saying like, pointing out like there's no way that the studios are gonna survive this. Like why did they ask for that extension of like 12 days or whatever if they weren't really gonna like truly negotiate? Like they're just gonna lose tons of money over the next few months and then eventually come back to the table when their business starts collapsing.
But they can write it off.
They can write it off, but I also think like there's a difference between, I think the studios think like, oh yeah, these people are going to lose their houses or whatever. And like, that may be true, but also like the studios need people to do this. And they're like studio executives don't know how to write a movie. They've never have. I'm sure 90% of them never have, and they don't know how to write and they don't know how to act for sure, or they'd be writing and acting. But there's, like you said, you're cutting off your farm. But the thing is that like the writers and the actors, I mean, again, not the Matt Damons, but like the working actors, they need this is their livelihood. This is their life. This is how they make money. It is how they earn a living. They need to be on strike for better wages. They need to get paid more to survive. So like for them, it's about survival. For the CEOs, it's just about like, oh, I'm making slightly less money than I was yesterday, you know? So like, I don't think they're going to wait out I think that the studios are really shooting themselves in the foot left and right.
Well, and on top of that, one of those CEOs you mentioned had another wonderful, wonderful quote. Who, I mean, and it's funny because of all CEOs of various companies, we've defended Bob Iger, on this podcast for various other things, but this was a bit of an egregious misstep from him.
It's a uncharacteristic publicity misstep, I think, from Bob Iger, who came out swinging against these unions. Bob Iger in the last 2 years has made $54 million from working CEO of Disney, and he just signed to stay on until 2026 with some kind of bonus that a part of his contract was like a bonus that he might get 500% of his annual salary at the end of the year. like an insane amount of money.
Oh yeah, which is funny because when that got like tossed around our chat, I think this was earlier in the week before all of this dropped and the quote dropped, and in my brain I was like, oh, we can talk about Iger actually getting extended and it meaning probably good things for the Disney brand and what's going on. And then this comes out and it's like, well, that just pivoted.
Yeah. He gave an interview that called the demands of the unions unrealistic, and that everything was happening at a very bad time for the industry, and that he's very disappointed that this has happened and it's very disruptive. Strikes are supposed to be disruptive. That's the whole point. That's the whole point, Bob. He gave the statement while he was attending a billionaires retreat with a lot of other studio heads, Mark Zuckerberg also, and people like that. So
how do we get invited to a billionaires retreat?
How do we get what?
Invited.
I think we have to be a billionaire, Steve.
Oh, okay. Well, we're screwed then.
Yeah, we're screwed. So just like a super tone deaf response. I know, maybe, streaming is starting to collapse. So yes, this is quote unquote a bad time for a strike. But you know whose fault that isn't? The writers and the actors that you haven't been paying well for years. Years. So,
and, I mean, it has nothing to do with their content structure or their model or any of that. It's all
right. It's all these greedy writers and actors that are striking. It's not. It's not the way that you set up the entire industry.
Right.
Yeah. Or leapt in his case, he leapt to join the streaming industry. Like Disney Plus was like his baby when before the time when his time away from Disney, he was pushing Disney Plus harder than that was like his big thing.
Now, at the same time, for clarification, I don't know if pushing as much content as Disney Plus is right now, it was his idea.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to that later.
Oh, we are. I should probably look at the rundown, shouldn't I?
That's fine. That's in the Marvel section. So yeah, we'll come back to Bob Iger in a little bit. But we'll read a quote from Bob Iger that's not nearly as egregious as one we just read. I'll say one other thing before we move on to actual like nerdy news stuff is that if any of you saw the Instagram live thing I did an hour before we recorded here, I mentioned that I was seeing things online and I wasn't sure whether or not I was seeing conflicting reports on what is scabbing behavior, what is crossing a picket line, what is not scabbing behavior, what is not crossing a picket line for everybody from journalists, entertainment journalists, down to influencers, podcasters, and people that just post their opinions on TikTok of movies and things like that. And I was seeing conflicting reports of like all of this. If you are just posting a review of a movie that you saw on Instagram or TikTok, you're crossing the picket line. Or no, you have to be a member or whatever of SAG, and or if you're doing that, then you're crossing the picket line. So I was like, whoa, what can I not talk about Mission Impossible tonight? Can like what's I know like
I don't pay union dues, so I'm not crossing any picket line.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like it turned like I found some seeming like clarification that as long like it's for members of the unions, can't be doing that. And if you are being paid by a studio, like if Bob Iger sends us a check to like give, whatever.
Right. If we were, review, we're talking about the comic reviews later. If like Marvel or DC is cutting us a check to get these early reviews out, it's one thing.
Yeah. Well, like we're going to do a Secret Invasion recap after this episode. And if Disney was paying us to do that, that would be crossing a picket line behavior.
For the record, they are not.
They are not. And we're just doing it of our own free will. So we'll continue to review films as we see them and shows as we see them. But, I don't even know what next week is going to look like at this point. This, like I said earlier at the top of the show, this might be the last week for actual nerdy news announcements for a while. So Steve and I have a couple ideas.
We got places we're going to go.
Ways to switch things up.
Stay tuned
in the interim.
If we can talk about the strike, if we can talk 26 minutes on the strike, then I think we're good.
We'll figure something out for sure. Anyway, here's some actual nerdy news for you. Some things there's a lot of things that actors can't do while they're on strike, at least in official promotion instances. Like, they can't go on talk shows, and they can't to promote movies, and they can't make any promotional appearance, whatever, in doing promotion. They can't sign new deals to star in movies. They can't attend premieres. They all that. They can go places, just not in like an official being paid by a studio to be there capacity. So I envisioned, as we got these announcements we're about to talk about, the day of or the day before the strike, I just envisioned James Gunn on the phone with people until midnight, trying to cast people in Superman Legacy right before the strike went.
We got to get it in.
We got to get him back on the phone. Get him back on the phone. And we got some big news on the Superman Legacy cast. Now, big is an arguable term. I don't know that any of these are going to be like main characters, but they're still big announcements to be made.
And
the biggest of
relatively big names too.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest of which is Nathan Fillion has been cast as Green Lantern, specifically Green Lantern Guy Gardner in Superman Legacy. Now, Nathan Fillion, no stranger to the world of nerds, playing Captain Malcolm Reynolds on Firefly in the movie Serenity. Mm-hmm. He's also appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a hilarious small role in that movie. He's a friend of James Gunn's. He's been in a lot of James Gunn stuff.
And the Suicide Squad, too.
And he was in the Suicide Squad as the detachable kid. So, not shocked that he's being cast in a James Gunn production because they're close. And one of the reasons this is cool is that he was a fan favorite to play Hal Jordan a long time ago when he was younger. And he was down for it, for sure. He actually even got to voice the character a few times in a few DC animated things. Guy Gardner, he's a popular Green Lantern character, but I can't say he's the A-list Green Lantern character. People know Hal Jordan, people know John Stewart. Guy Gardner is maybe the third or fourth known Green Lantern. He was a big, I guess he's around since like the late 60s or 70s, but he really kind of hit his stride in the 80s. He was in a series called Justice League International, where he was like the sole Green Lantern. He's kind of like a lovable asshole.
Okay.
Kind of like alpha male, but in a way that you can tell that he also has a good heart at the same time. He's kind of like the antagonist of the group, but always, there to support them at the same time.
Playing the Wolverine role.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, but also kind of like more full of shit than Wolverine is.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like you can tell, you can poke holes in his arguments. James Gunn said about Guy Gardner, he said, I really love the character from Justice League International especially, but he also fits the story I'm trying to tell with Superman Legacy. He also went on to clarify that the Green Lantern series, the show that they're making for HBO Max, is not a separate thing, and that Nathan Fillion will play Guy Gardner in all parts of the DCU, implying, I should say, that Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner will appear in the Max Green Lantern series, which is, I guess, was in development. I can't say that it's currently in development now that everybody's on strike. So
I know you may not want to hear this, but you mentioned Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
So
I almost put it on the rundown.
Yeah.
See, I know exactly what you're gonna say. I almost put it on the rundown, and I thought it's definitely gonna come up during the DC section.
Yeah. As soon as Green Lantern was on the rundown, I'm like, I got to bring it up. So for anyone who hasn't heard, it is now all but official that The Flash will be the biggest bomb in DC movie history, I believe.
Not just DC movie history. It is the biggest flop in the history of Warner Brothers Pictures.
Wow. Did not realize that. So it officially will finish below the Ryan Reynolds much maligned Green Lantern.
Made less money than Green Lantern. And again, I think that's insane.
I do too.
That movie's good.
Yeah. like I said in our review, it's not cinema, but I had a lot of fun with a bucket of popcorn and just watching the movie.
Unrealistic levels of hatred for that movie.
Yeah.
I
mean, it had a lot of things going against it. It had like everything is already changing. It had a complete lack of promotion. It had an extremely problematic actor as the lead. There was a whole and call me crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing for Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2.
I know, and we're gonna talk about Blue Beetle in a little bit, so we'll dive into more then. But I don't disagree. But yeah, that movie's good. But also one of the biggest flops in cinema history, apparently. But also, you know what? Maybe just don't spend that much money on movies anymore.
Maybe that's the other hopeful lesson that can come out of this kind of whole situation between that and Dial of Destiny and what else came out that was
you mean the entire summer of movies that are underperforming?
Like everything out. Again, our friend in the chat, Brian Rollins, again, bad time for the industry. Every blockbuster without Tom Cruise is bombing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that later too.
If you want to see our full Flash review, you can go back a few weeks when we talk about it in depth, having no idea that it would bomb as hard as it has bombed. Back to Superman Legacy. We also got Isabella Merced, star of the live-action Dora the Explorer film, which I have not seen.
Correct.
Has been cast as Hawkgirl. Awesome. We got Edie Gathegi from X-Men First Class. Played Darwin in X-Men First Class.
Which was the worst interpretation of Darwin possible, but whatever. We can go off on that tangent at a different time.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Not from his volition, but like what they did with the
character. No. The way, a character that's unable to die.
Right. That
dies.
Literally adapts to everything dies. What?
Yeah, except, so weird.
We'll
Edie
hold
Gathegi's
that.
been cast.
We'll hold that for our when the writer strike's in full swing.
Yeah. For September when we're running out of things to talk about, we're like, let's talk about all the X-Men movies.
Don't
Hey,
threaten me
who
with a good
knows?
time.
It might happen. It might happen. Anyway, Edie Gathegi's been cast as Mr. Terrific, smartest man in the DC universe, and we knew that this was coming. We've heard that Mr. Terrific was on James Gunn's wish list for a long time, so he is officially going to be in the movie. And the day of the strike, the day the strike was announced, or maybe the day before, very last minute, Anthony Carrigan from Barry, from Gotham, has been cast as Metamorpho, which is, Steve, I don't know if you know who Metamorpho is.
I know he's behind you.
Yeah, Metamorpho is the kind of C-list, D-list, James Gunn kind of character that makes total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he's going to play into a Superman movie, but I love it. And like this character in the hands of James Gunn is like, yeah, you got it. Yes, Steve, behind me I have the second appearance of Metamorpho in an issue of Brave and the Bold.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I saw it behind you in the video, and I thought it said Metamorpho the Elephant Man, and I was really confused.
No,
so that very much changes as you bring that forward.
Yes, Element Man. He can change his body into different elements. It was like he was forced, maybe he volunteered or was lied to about like a science experiment.
Yep.
And now his in his regular state, his head, two sides of his torso, and each of his legs are like different colors or different elements. But then he can change his entire body into wood or fire or rock or whatever.
Nice.
And it's kind of like a classic tale of kind of like The Thing, where he's like got these cool powers but hates himself because he's like an abomination. It's that kind of thing with Metamorpho.
Well, that made so Fantastic Four, Mr. Terrific, smartest man in the DCU. Go figure, 20 years after he was created, that Mr. Fantastic happens to be the smartest guy in the Marvel universe.
Dude, I did not even think of that, but yeah, you're right. The names are so similar.
I had to look up when Mr. Terrific was originally, like, not the Michael Holt version, but the original version was 1940 something, and Fantastic Four was 61. So
yeah, you're right.
It's like,
wow.
Okay, let's go with really close names. Again.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. It's funny that you bring up Fantastic Four, because I was about to bring up Fantastic Four. I think it was like 2018. Jeff Lemire wrote a series called The Terrifics. I think it was like maybe 20 or 30 issues or something like that, called The Terrifics. And it was a team that was Mr. Terrific, smartest man in the DCU, Metamorpho, guy that can change his body into different elements, including fire and, rock, Plastic Man, super stretchy guy, and who was it? Phantom Girl, who can't turn herself invisible, but she can turn herself intangible, like Kitty Pryde phasing through wall
like
power.
phasing in that.
So just seeing Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho cast, like, how is it possible?
Are they going to have
the
the Fantastic Four movie first?
Is the DCU going to get to Fantastic Four before the MCU gets to Fantastic Four?
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be great, because again, think about this. This Superman Legacy movie was announced 6 months ago, and we've got all these cast members. Fantastic Four 2 years ago, zero cast members announced. What's going on there? This is the benefit of one guy running a studio, writing and directing a movie. I think things move faster if there's only one level of approval they have to get through. So anyway, in other DC news, I forgot that this was even a possibility. Apparently, Constantine 2, the sequel to the Keanu Reeves 2005 Constantine movie, apparently that's still happening. We got word close to a year ago, must be at this point, that was going to happen, but then it was kind of up in the air when James Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC Films. But the writer,
I completely forgot that Akiva Goldsman was the one that was tied to this too.
Yeah. Goldsmith gave a interview this past week, said, "My pens are down, so there's nothing to do," referencing the writer's strike. But yeah, those are the next things I'm writing when I'm allowed to write again. And I had already begun I Am Legend 2 when we started striking, and Francis and Keanu and I have broken the story for Constantine 2. I just haven't started typing it yet. So apparently it's going to I Am Legend 2 also. Watch out, Matt Peseta, our friend of the pod, who thinks I Am Legend is the scariest movie he's ever seen. Not a big horror fan, Matt.
Other thing I did not realize, Akiva Goldsman was the writer for Batman and Robin.
Yes. Yep. He's been a Warner Brothers guy for a while. So he's got some hits and misses.
That was a miss.
For sure.
That was definitively a miss.
Big miss. Big miss. So that might still happen. James Gunn said that there are possibilities for other Elseworlds stories to be told outside of the main line DCU films, and looks like Constantine 2, maybe one of them. We'll be interested to see if we get 2 Constantines, as we're going to have 2 Batmen at the same time. We're going to have Pattinson and then whoever in the DCU Batman is. If Keanu gets to make his Constantine 2, we may have 2 Constantines. Steve, what's that face that you're just making?
I was going through. I'm still going through Goldsman's wiki. He produced Deep Blue Sea, and all I can think of is the Dave Chappelle Samuel L. Jackson skit.
Yeah, that movie's bad, but
it's a movie.
It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. I think I watched it within the last year and a half or 2 years or something, and I was like, this is bad, but I'm laughing at it.
Bad in a good way.
Something for me. Yeah.
I think the Keanu resurgence is helping the Constantine thing.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah, the fact that he's wanted to make a sequel since 2005,
right,
and people are falling all over themselves for the John Wick franchise and stuff, and everyone loves Keanu Reeves. Who doesn't love Keanu Reeves?
Exactly.
So yeah,
he's him and Dave Grohl. They're
sorry, what's that?
I said him and Dave Grohl. They're like in their respective fields, like America's random uncle. They're like, oh, that's the cool uncle.
Yeah, they also don't look dissimilar. Long dark hair, beards, graying beards.
Yeah. Maybe they're the same person.
Oh,
they both play in bands.
That's true. Dog Star and Foo Fighters. Has Dog Star ever opened for Foo Fighters? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Never seen them in the same place.
All right, your Multiverse Report conspiracy corner is over now. Moving on.
Last piece of DC news. We got a new trailer for Blue Beetle, the final trailer for Blue Beetle, coming out next month. James Gunn has once again this week confirmed via social media that Blue Beetle will continue on into the DCU, saying yes, Blue Beetle and a handful of other characters will continue in the DCU, even though the first DC Studios movie is Superman Legacy. So another confirmation that Xolo Maridueña as Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes will continue on, and he said a handful of other characters. So wondering who else will be moving on from this movie. And might be somebody bigger than just a side character, as Maridueña said in an interview this week. I think if you're a DC fan, there's going to be more than just one character that you recognize. I can tell you that. Kind of hinting that there may be some other characters introduced. I still believe that Blue Beetle Ted Cord will be introduced in this movie. That's my
there's a whole
theory.
Cord Industries thing, and
there's a whole Cord Industries thing. You see his the bug, there's a vehicle in both trailers. That's my guess, but who knows? Xolo Maridueña also posted a heartfelt video right after the strike was announced, saying that because of the strike, he won't be doing any promotion for the movie, but thanked the entire cast and crew and directors and all the fans and everything, and basically said, if you're a fan, if you want to see this movie, like, I can't promote it, but you can. So, tell your friends and all that kind of stuff. So, kind of a bummer for this guy, honestly. Just about
horrible
to start
timing.
His big break, and he's the first, Latin American person to lead a superhero film, big budget superhero film. That's a big deal. But, solidarity with your unions, nothing you can do about it.
I mean, and Cholo is like, that's really the first thing he's done, right?
He was on the Karate Kid show.
Oh, okay, on Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, that's what it's called. Yep.
Gotcha.
And
I've never seen that show, so.
No, neither have I, but I've heard it's great.
Nice.
I've heard it's great, and I heard he was good on it.
I did also hear that this trailer was great after watching it. I told myself.
Yeah,
That's where I heard it from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard it from my own brain.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought this was good. I thought the trailer showed a little too much. I feel
That's
like it
what I was
kind of
gonna
is
say.
one of those trailers that maybe showed you the entire movie.
Which can
But
be a good
it's
thing
a
or a
movie
bad
that,
thing. Like
yeah,
sometimes
it's
they
a movie
do
that looks
that.
like a lot of fun.
Yeah, sometimes they do that to like, I don't know if they're not confident in it, they show a little
Right.
too much. But I don't know. It seemed like the pieces were all there. So here's the hope.
Yeah. Here's to hoping. I hope, and I remember I said this in, I think I posted a clip from our Flash review recently, and talking about how, and you just mentioned this, like, will the box office flop of the Flash affect Blue Beetle? I really hope that it doesn't. Because I think this movie looks good. It's a separate thing from the DCU that everyone else is tired of, and it looks fun and funny. It looks bright. The effects look good. You know, like you said about the Flash, I don't know that's going to be cinema.
Right.
But it does look like it's going to be a fun movie. But our audiences just have they thrown up their hands with the DCU and anything that's remotely attached to it for right now.
Reported budget's only 120, so quote unquote only 120 million.
Hey, that sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I want more movies like that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that's half the battle at this point. Is like, why
Yeah.
are you throwing $300 million at a movie, like,
right,
that you can film for
Yeah.
a lot less?
I saw somebody on Twitter say movies used to look a lot more real before people tried so hard to make them look real.
Yes.
Right? Like,
And
you're
the
spending so
effects-
much money on CGI, just go outside. You know what I mean? Go
Right.
out, find a mountain
For
and film it
for
there.
half the cost, you could fly people to Nepal and go film in like the Himalayas.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sure, it's cheaper to do CGI, but it looks like dog shit. We can all tell.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, Mount Wundagore should have been in the Alps. Like,
Yeah.
fly
yeah.
people over there, film it good.
Yeah. So I don't know, I hope this movie does well. I'm excited for it. Like, you know, the trailer does give maybe a little bit too much away, but I hope it does. I hope it does well. I'm gonna go see it as soon as I can, for sure. So
Nice.
tell your friends about Blue Beetle. Speaking of movies looking more real and people going outside to shoot things, I saw Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Which features, if you've seen any of the trailers or watched, this is not, I'm not going to give spoilers. I don't consider this a spoiler because it's been all over the place. Features Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle off of a cliff and then turning it into a base jump with a parachute, which was incredible. Like, even though I'd seen it before in trailers and I saw a behind the scenes featurette that they released like 5 months ago, I still thought it was great in the theater. This movie's good. This movie's long. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. There's a lot of setup. I felt like it started a little slower than some of the other Mission Impossible movies. And I kind of realized that this is Dead Reckoning Part 1. They were filming Part 2 until the strike happened.
Yep.
Part 2 is supposed to come out next year. I can't imagine it's going to come out next year now. But there's a lot of like exposition. And I think that's because they have to set up this movie and they have to set up Part 2 at the same time, because there's going to be a lot of payoff in Part 2 for things that did not get paid off in Part 1, which made the beginning, the first act, felt a little clunkier, a little sweatier, a little slower to me personally. They certainly made up for that, 10 times over with the amount of great, uncompromising action. Car chases through the streets of Rome, and motorcycle jumps off of cliffs, and there's a whole train sequence at the end, which is exceptional. I think it was very good. Didn't completely have my heart beating out of my chest like Fallout did, Mission Impossible Fallout, but certainly something that I'm very excited to see again. I want to watch it again. I'll say the other negative thing I'll say about it is that there were a couple tropes. I'm not going to say what they are. Just things that have been done to death in other movies that I'm kind of sick of. This movie, there's two tropes that they utilize that I just am sick of and don't like at all. Haley Atwell joins the cast. I liked her in this more than I've ever liked her in anything, including the Captain America movies. I thought she was great. She plays off Tom Cruise really well.
Yes.
Pom Clementif, who plays Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy, She's excellent in this movie. She's like a henchman. She's ruthless. She's a badass. She's great. I hope she continues on to other movies.
I'm also
in
very
this franchise.
disappointed that she cannot continue to promote this movie, because if you have not seen there's probably 2 or 3 clips now of her promoting this, and like there was another one from the past that I had sent Mike earlier about her knocking Chris Hemsworth, like mocking him and like knocking him down a peg. And then he sent me this wonderful promotion that her and Simon Pegg had done for this movie. Like she is a gem.
She was giving an interview with an unsuspecting, just interviewed somebody from a news outlet or something. But Simon Pegg had a microphone backstage and was feeding her lines, telling her to say just insane things, responding to this poor interviewer as a prank. It was very funny. She was very committed to it. And so she's excellent in it. I love Rebecca Ferguson. She's great in it. The whole crew is back. The whole setup is the hardest thing to buy about this movie isn't the insane stunts. For me, it was like the premise of like the villain and what's happening is just like, that was like the hardest thing to buy. It's almost a little more like sci-fi than the other ones have been.
Okay.
But not completely unrealistic, but just, and I think they know that too, because they like explain it like several times. There are several scenes of exposition to try to like make sure everyone's on the same page. But like I said, hopefully all that exposition in this movie helps number 2 just like hit the ground running and go, because you don't have to do it as much because you did it in part 1. I love this franchise. This was like one of my most anticipated movies of the summer. It didn't go, I went in with completely sky high expectations, so I want to see it again. I liked it a lot. Not my favorite Mission Impossible movie, certainly not the worst. I think I saw somebody, I saw someone screenshotted 2 posts from Variety, like the entertainment outlet Variety.
Yep.
One said, Mission Impossible underperforms with only making this amount of money domestically. And then the other one from the same account said, Mission Impossible raking in this insane amount of money worldwide and like dominating the box. Like, what do you do? What are you doing? You're the same thing. What are you doing, Variety? You're 2 different opinions of the same thing. So like, I don't know what's real. I don't know what box office looks like anymore. But I think this is it's one of the highest openings for the series so far, behind like I don't know, Mission Impossible 2 or something, which
wasn't great.
Is my least favorite of the entire series, but
I think
hot off number 1.
I can't remember.
You think 3 was your least favorite?
I think so.
Oh, 3. But we can agree to disagree.
I don't know. I know there was
3's
one of those early 2 or 3 was like the one that turned me off until like a year ago when you were like, no, go back and watch those.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait, they are good.
I find 2 to be very boring.
Which one was 2?
2 is one that's directed by John Woo. It's where Tom Cruise is like climbing a mountain in the beginning.
Okay, yeah. That's
Sandy Newton is in it. Yeah. The 3 is the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman as the villain.
Oh, okay.
And that one it's got weird color timing. It's got like weird like
not
early
my favorite,
2000s.
Much better than 2.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Also, this is the year of Rebecca Ferguson. Like she has this, and then she's in Silo on Apple TV Plus.
Oh yeah.
And then Dune Part 2 is coming out in November.
Oh, that's right. She's in Dune. Yeah.
So like, yeah, she plays Lady Jessica in Dune. So it's like she is everywhere. Right now.
She is great. Yeah, she's great. Moving into some Marvel-y stuff. This dropped earlier in the week to just my adult self and my childhood self just both leapt up and high-fived.
Yes,
when I saw this. We got the first official photo of Hugh Jackman in costume on the set of Deadpool 3. in costume as Wolverine. And we all remember first X-Men movie where, of course, these guys got to be cool. They can't be wearing bright colors. We got to put them all in black leather. And we're so confident in this decision that they ought to be wearing black leather suits. We're going to make a joke about how dumb the actual comic book costumes are by Wolverine or Cyclops saying, like, oh, what kind of costume did you expect? Yellow spandex? Ha ha! Yellow spandex, a bright yellow costume on Wolverine? That would look terrible.
And all of us, when he said that, we're like, no, yeah, that's what we wanted.
Yeah. And that's what we got, because holy crap, we got a photo of Hugh Jackman walking beside Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds in full Deadpool costume. Hugh Jackman in a bright yellow with blue highlights. Wolverine costume that looks like straight out of the comic book. And god damn it, it looks amazing. I never realized how much I wanted to see that.
Yep.
Until I saw that picture. 100% honesty.
I still would like them to take the tops of the sleeves off, like to give them the actual comic accurate, like
well, you
cut
know
it
what?
here in the gloves. But
yeah, I actually heard that he has some kind of like skin condition or something where he's susceptible to like skin cancer or something. So they had to cover him up. So he preferred the long sleeves. So that could be wrong. I read that on Twitter. So who knows?
The interwebs are never wrong, Mike. You know this.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
So we did get. Originally, we had thought we were going to see the 80s classic maroon and yellow after the, what is it, Wolverine? Was it the Wolverine's post-credit scene?
Oh, you mean brown and yellow?
Or the brown and yellow.
Okay, yeah, like the Jim Lee. Yeah, that's my favorite Wolverine suit.
It's a great one.
I would love that.
But apparently they decided to just go full-blown into the, straight up 90s, lean into it.
Yeah, I mean, and they said that this is a multiverse movie, so like maybe it's not the same Wolverine that's got the brown and yellow suit at the end of
I guess it's brown,
the Wolverine movie. You know what I mean? Like it could be.
I don't know why my brain always processed that as like a dark maroon.
Oh, I don't know. I always see it as brown.
You made me rethink my entire childhood for a second there, Mike.
Yeah. But I think this looks great. Like you can even tell it's even got the little holsters for the claws to come out on his gloves, which we never had before because he's always like because the claws always come out of like between his knuckles, which is like easier to film it, to have a practical claw just clenched in your fist. But like I love that you get the little things on top of the glove. Oh man, it looks so I'm so excited.
Oh, did you see Lego is putting out they did the Infinity Gauntlet and they did the Nano Gauntlet.
Oh,
and they're putting out Wolverine's fist in the glove and gauntlet with his claws extended.
Yeah, with the claws extended. Yeah, that looks really awesome. You gonna get it?
I'm pretty sure I know because I don't know if it's out now or if it's coming out, but I'm pretty sure I know what I'm gonna end up with for my birthday.
Nice.
It's usually what ends up happening is like, is there a nerdy set that came out? Okay. My wife will buy that for me for my nominal birthday present.
Nice. Awesome.
Hence Thor's hammer right behind me.
Yeah, that's right. Next to an awesome looking X-Wing.
Yeah, that one was my own purchase because that was it's a giant X-Wing. What the hell?
Treat yourself. Treat yourself. So yeah, we know what Wolverine's gonna look like in Deadpool 3. He looks awesome. Deadpool 3 also shut down production, obviously, because of the actor strike.
Hot take. I think it's gonna help.
100%. I agree. I think it's gonna help for sure. It's wild, like the strike, this happening right now, I feel like everything is going to change. Like like when a deal is reached, the industry is going to be different. The like releasing things might be different. Every release date that we have right now is going to change. Everything's going to be pushed
100%.
Unless something is done already, like Blue Beetle's still coming out next month. I'm sure Aquaman 2, like you mentioned earlier, like I'm sure that the filming of that movie is all completed. I'm sure they're just in post, so like that movie's going to come out for the rest of the year. But
anything that doesn't need like crazy ADR or like amazing post work for the actors, like the stuff on the tail end of it, we're probably going to see some pretty shitty things coming out.
Yeah, you're right.
Because like
Yeah,
no reshoots, no nothing, and the studios are probably gonna be like, well, shit, we got to put this out.
We got to get something out. Got to put something out. We're not making anything new. I think I said this to you in a text, but it's funny that like we've talked about how packed this summer is. This summer is a huge summer for movies, and it's funny because it is, but it's going to even out next year when we get nothing. Like there's not going to be hardly anything, I feel like, coming out for a long time after this. Like things are way shut down. Something that I think benefits is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Personally, for me,
100%.
We've been hearing a few quotes from Bob Iger talking about how there's too much Marvel stuff, and he went back to that well again this week in an interview about Marvel's kind of diminishing returns. He said, "In our zeal to basically grow our content significantly to serve mostly our streaming offerings, we ended up taxing our people way beyond in terms of their time and their focus, way beyond where they had been. Marvel is a great example of that. They had not been in the TV business at any significant level. Not only did they increase their movie output, but they ended up making a number of television series, and frankly, it diluted focus and attention. That is, I think, more of the cause than anything." So he's right in that I think that the TV shows and the extra movies diluted focus and attention, like kind of diluted the MCU brand. I agree with that. What I don't agree with is that Marvel had not been in the TV business at any significant level. Hello? How many seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are there? How many
7.
We get 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. plus Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Defenders, Punisher, all on Netflix. Like, yo, you can't say that's not significant,
right?
But he's clearly just looking at numbers and noting the diminishing returns, which I think is accurate. I'm more interested, almost more interested than anything else, in seeing how this strike affects Marvel and what they have announced, like the stuff they announced last year at Comic-Con, how much of that stuff even still happens.
Right.
When it finally does happen. They've already pushed back a ton of those movies twice. Some of them have gotten pushed back a number of times. Like, are they just going to give up on something like Blade? Are they going to give up on, I don't know, Shang-Chi 2? Like,
right.
I don't know. I feel like they got to really make some hard choices and really streamline their stuff because...
But then at the same time, like without all that filler to use to set up something like Secret Wars, like what are you going to do? How do you do that?
I don't know. I mean, they set up all the other Avengers movies without having TV shows and stuff.
Oh, they set them up great over the course of how many years? So,
well, I don't know, man. But hey, you and I just went on a huge rant last week about how like none of the post-credit scenes seem to mean anything anymore.
Right.
And they're like not doing a good job of, they're not doing a good job of setting up a through line for what they're doing or what they're building towards. So if they start maybe doing that more and really kind of honing in and like really putting some pieces in it, like make a plan. Like I feel like you must have some kind of plan if you got somebody writing 2 Avengers movies that aren't coming out for 4 years. But like,
well, maybe you see a major pivot with majors and
that's true.
There's a lot of majors. Sorry,
I know, but somebody like a studio like the best thing right now. I think I said this in our flash review. The best thing for James Gunn's new DCU is the time that it's going to take between The Flash coming out and Superman Legacy coming out, which is already like 2 years.
Yeah.
And, we're going to get the Penguin, we're going to get the Waller series, and we're going to get Creature Commandos, which is the first official DCU thing. But we're not going to get after Aquaman, we're not going to get a DC movie until Superman Legacy in 2025, right. Which I'm sure that's going to get pushed now because of the writer strike, because both strikes, writers and actor strikes. So I think it's going to be a thing where by the time we get to Superman Legacy, everyone's going to be like, heck yeah, I'm in for this. Great. But
well, similar to what we're dealing with right now with the Star Wars stuff. Like whenever they actually get around to putting out a new Star Wars movie, I got a hunch people will go see it.
Yeah, it's already been a few years since the Star Wars movie, and now it's going to be even more because those are going to get pushed too.
mean,
The difference there being with
2018?
Marvel is that Marvel has put. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, what was it, 2018 for Rise of Skywalker?
19, I
19?
think, but still,
Yeah.
Feels like a longer time ago than that.
Well, COVID was like 2 years and 17 years at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. The difference with Marvel is that they are kind of locked into the story that they've started telling, and they can't make big, both like the other two big franchises we just mentioned, DC and Star Wars, are at places where they are more or less resetting things or starting over or starting with new stories.
Right.
Whether it's a new universe or the same universe, we're getting new stories. Marvel is getting their story that they've been telling slowly over the last couple of years interrupted. Like, how is that gonna land? Are they just gonna push everything out until 2029? We're gonna get the next Avengers movie? Like, what's gonna happen with the MCU? That's gonna be interesting to see, I think.
Agreed.
One thing that's happening with an MCU actor, that's kind of a weak segue, but anyway, Ms. Marvel herself, Iman Vellani, played Ms. Marvel in the TV show Ms. Marvel, also playing her in The Marvels, due to come out this fall, as long as the strikes don't prevent it. Iman Vellani is going to write a new Ms. Marvel series for Marvel Comics, or co-write, I should say. Ms. Marvel character is currently dead, stupidly. But, it's comics, so no one stays dead, except Uncle Ben. But Ms. Marvel, The New Mutant, is a new miniseries coming out August 2023. It's going to be written by Vellani and Saber Pirzada, with art by Carlos Gomez and Adam Gorham. She was quoted as saying, "This is way scarier than joining the MCU for me. Those projects feel like they live in their own dimension, so I guess I can separate myself easier. But you can hold a comic book. I've never written anything before in my entire life, but I've read many comics, so I just wrote what I would want to read. I was given a very professional tool. To write what is essentially my own fan fiction." And then a lot of people came out of the woodwork, Marvel fans, mutant fans, Inhuman fans specifically, saying that
there are
Ms.
dozens
Marvel is
of
not a
them,
mutant.
for the record.
Dozens. There are dozens of us. Ms. Marvel's not a mutant. Ms. Marvel is an Inhuman. And in spoiler alert for her show, they seem to hint that she was a mutant instead of an Inhuman in the MCU. In the comic book, she's an Inhuman, and a lot of people were mad that there's a book called The New Mutant with her as a star. Vellani clarified. She said, despite the title of the series, they are not retconning Kamala Khan's Inhuman heritage. So that makes me wonder why they're calling it that. Why they're calling it the New Mutant if they're not gonna make her mutant. But who knows?
I mean, if you were Marvel, would you want to go anywhere near Inhumans with a 10-foot pole in the MCU?
No. Not in the MCU, no. Yeah. But in comics, like, right. I don't think the Inhumans have been around much in the comics since the failure of the series, but Ms. Marvel's the most prominent.
Well, they brought them back for. No, never mind. That was Eternals. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. Man, they pushed Eternals so hard. They were trying so hard to get us to care about the Eternals, and I don't think it really
Avengers.
Worked. I like that movie.
That whole AXE crossover and Judgment Day and all that. And yeah.
And now, is there an Eternals book even on this being made right now?
Not.
I don't think there is.
I believe there's an ongoing.
I don't think there is. I haven't seen the name Eternals on a shelf in a really long time.
Yeah. No, it's. I don't believe
Wild.
Right now there is an ongoing.
Wild.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
2021.
Get yourself together, MCU. Get yourself together. What are you doing? Another comic book story. Big fans of this guy on this podcast, James Tynion IV, and artist Martin Simmonds are working on a new Dracula book called Universal Monsters Dracula #1. Going to be in stores this October, just in time for spooky season. It's a 4-issue limited series. And Tynion had this to say about it. Said, the challenge in front of Martin and I is to take the bloody heart of the Universal Pictures classic and find a bold new way to bring the character to life. been one of the most exciting creative challenges of my life, and I am phenomenally excited for you to see the horrors we have in store for you.
Okay.
That's cool. I like James Tynion a lot. He's a great horror writer, as we know from Something is Killing the Children. And, Dracula, the goat vampire. And I think, there's lots of like reinterpretations of Dracula.
Hold on.
Based
you
on...
just touched on something?
Uh-huh.
Can we actually get a comic book of him being a goat vampire? Not the greatest of all time vampire, but like an actual goat that just bites people?
Well, in the original book, he can shapeshift into a wolf. And so why not a goat?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Why not?
I'd say, you know what? That's going to be like an IDW imprint, like half comic, tongue-in-cheek maneuver. Like, yeah, I can see this being a book. I think we're onto something, Mike.
Yeah. Steve, do you want to do our comic reviews now before we do the what else is coming out in comic book stores list?
Yeah, sure, if you want.
Yeah, let's do it now, and then we'll wrap up with the what else is going to be in stores and do some one-shots. Do you want to go first or want me to go first?
Who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
How do we do this? Who talks first?
You can talk first.
Hard to hear you with the whole mask. All right, so this week, this is our first comic review segment that we're doing, sponsored by Funky Town Comics.
Preview review?
Steve and I... Preview review, yeah. Preview. Steve and I were both given a different book, and moving forward, we may decide to get the same book so we can share our thoughts on it. But for this first week, we were given different books. I was given a new #1, Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder. Now there was a lot of, DC does these, Marvel does these, IDW even does these. I think like anthology books. For some reason, I feel like Black, White, and Red has become a thing. Like there's Deadpool, Black, White, and Red. There's Harley Quinn. There's Vader.
I was going to say, I'm looking at the Darth Vader books right there.
Yeah. And I think it's just because it looks very dynamic in a book when it's all black and white and the only actual color is red. It's a very like dynamic look, similar to the cover of your Moon Knight book. Yeah.
So I got Moon Knight City of the Dead, which is going to be the new a new event for Moon Knight that has a very similar color palette on the cover, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's very dynamic. It works, right? It just works. So this is I used to love and DC's done like Superman red, white, and blue, and Batman black and white, and Wonder, so like doing an anthology book with limited color palette is a thing, which I sometimes enjoy. But I feel like a lot of times either there's too many short stories that I get bored and I don't want to actually finish reading the book. And companies do that when they do like, we're celebrating Green Arrow's 80th anniversary or something. Here's an oversized book with like 10 different short Green Lantern stories or Green Arrow stories. I'm like, oh, that's fun, but maybe they're kind of too short to really get anything out of them, or they're like up and down. I really liked this a lot. I think there's only like 3 stories in it. 3 or 4, maybe 3. So it gives the creative team like enough pages to like really come up with something interesting. Chip Zdarsky and Kevin Maguire are the team on the first story, A Man of Steel, in which Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy try to break into the Fortress of Solitude and rob it, which is just like a bonkers thing that like you wouldn't write a whole mini series about that really, but yeah, you can get away with it if it's just a short story in a Harley Quinn book. There's one that is about her training to be a gymnast and fighting against a corrupt and abusive coach, which is very interesting because it is part of Harley's origin that she is a gymnast, but I feel like we forget about that because her origin is so hooked on her being a psychotherapist to the Joker and inmates of Arkham Asylum. And then Paul Shearer and Nick Giovannetti and artist Tom Riley do one about her reteaming with some other older Joker nemesis. Sorry, not nemesis, but like sidekicks and stuff like that, which is a cool reference point to some of those older characters. So basically, I like this a lot. Like, and something like the newest Vader Black, White, and Red, I liked too because it had less stories than I thought. Like having only, like I said, having only 3 stories in this really made it. You can really kind of sink your teeth into something more than just like a 4-page in and out kind of thing.
Yeah, like those first Vaders had like 5 or 6 in them, right?
Yeah, it's not as much as I thought. And even when Jesse gave me this, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll see. I liked it way more than I thought because you get more character stuff out of it, and you get different sides of the character. You get, the humor. You can be funny, but you can also be, you get in-depth look at her background and stuff. You get real character stuff, and it's not just kind of like frivolous storytelling. So I think if you are a fan at all of Harley Quinn, this is definitely a book that is worthy of your time to be picked up because, and also the cool thing about an anthology based on one character is you get different like artistic interpretations of the character, you get different written interpretations of the character, and all a lot of these comic book characters, they are so malleable. It's part of the reason that they've survived for 60 or 80 years. There are different interpretations of them, and it really kind of shows in a book like this. So I recommend, if you're a DC fan or a Harley Quinn fan, Harley Quinn Black, White, and Redder. It's called Redder because they already did like a 6-issue mini called Black, White, and Red, and this is like a sequel to that miniseries, and it's number 1 in that. It comes out this week. Pick it up at Funky Town Comics. Harley Quinn Black, White, and Redder. Thumbs up from Mike Gibson of the Multiverse Report.
So for part 2 of our 2-part review series, from the other of the big 2, Marvel, Moon Knight City of the Dead. I've always been an on and off fan of Mr. Knight himself.
Yeah.
So in this, he ends up fighting the Sons of the Jackal in the City of the Dead, the eponymous, other realm. And it is the first appearance of the new Scarlet Scarab from the MCU. So if you remember from the show, Layla Al-Fayawi is the new Scarlet Scarab in the show. She is now officially the new Scarlet Scarab in the comics as well.
Oh,
so
cool.
This is a mini that's going to be tied to the ongoing Moon Knight series that they have. I think they're about 25 episodes, 25 issues in. This is kind of a little spin-off in there. I really enjoyed it. It very much focused on Mark and his trying to track down the Sons of the Jackal. Very straightforward book on a Moon Knight scale, but pretty solid setup. And I enjoyed, from all the problems that the Moon Knight series had, I did enjoy the Layla character. So I'm glad to see they're kind of bringing her into the Moon Knight-averse, if you will.
Nice.
So
let me ask you, because mine, another reason that the Harley Quinn one is a good pickup, because you don't need, because they're just separate stories, they're not tied into anything. They're just like short little stories, including the character that you like, and you can read it without knowing what's going on. Because this is your Moon Knight book is a spin-off of, you said, what's going on in like the main Moon Knight series. Did you find you were confused, or was like, is this like if someone was just like, hey, I saw that Moon Knight series and I want a book, can they walk in and jump into this no problem, or is there a little background they have to do?
So the new ongoing, I had picked up like maybe the first 3 of, and then hadn't read anything since. And it was a decent jumping on point. Like they gave you enough. You don't get the weird complexities that you would get with Moon Knight in other contexts, but if you're looking at baseline Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, what they're doing with the City of the Dead and whatnot, it's a much more straightforward tale, but it's not bad in any stretch. Like I would definitely, if you're interested in Moon Knight, I would say pick it up. Written by David Pepose, art by Marcelo Ferreira, Jay Leiston, and Rochelle Rosenberg. So that's coming out on Wednesday as well. But
nice.
Not if you're not interested in Moon Knight, it's not one that's like, go pick this up now. You need to read it. It's an A+.
It's not gonna.
But if
It's not
you're
gonna change your mind.
right, if you're into the mythos, I would 100% say like well worth a grab.
Oh, nice, cool. All right, well, you can get both these at Funky Town Comics this Wednesday. They are open from noon to 8. It's new comic book day Wednesdays, so check them out. I will be there either Wednesday or Thursday to pick up a couple of these books that are coming out this week. What else is coming out this week? We got Alien #4. We got Batman Superman World's Finest #17. We got Black Panther #2. We got Blade #1, a new #1 Blade. Blue Beetle #1, special re-release edition of the first Blue Beetle #1. I think to start tying stuff into that movie. Darkwing Duck #7. Guardians of the Galaxy #4. Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red are #1 of 6. I just gave you a whole view of it. Hawk Girl #1. Great timing for an announcement of
a lot of these between Hawk Girl and Blade and Blue Beetle, and like I think we're onto something here where they keep relaunching these when
honestly, I think the Hawk Girl is coincidence because I don't think anyone, making a comic takes a long time. So I don't think 8 months ago was like, let's start making a Hawk Girl book now because James Gunn is going to cast Isabella Merced on July, 13th or whatever. We got more Night Terrors, the DC event happening. Night Terrors Catwoman, Night Terrors Nightwing, Night Terrors Punchline, Night Terrors Superman, and Night Terrors Wonder Woman, all coming out. I'm reading some of those books. Some of them are good, some of them are meh.
Yep.
I haven't picked up all of them, but hit or miss. The aforementioned Moon Knight, City of the Dead, #1 of 5. Red Sonja, Volume 7, #1. Something is Killing the Children, #31. Been a long time since an issue of Something is Killing the Children. Excited to jump back into that story. Star Trek Day of Blood, #1. That's a pretty dark title for a Star Trek book, I feel like. Star Wars Dr. Aphra, #34. Star Wars Return of the Jedi, The Rebellion, #1. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, Lost Day Special, #1. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Street Fighter, #2. The Vigil, #3, a book I'm a fan of. And X-Men Red, #13. All going to be in the local comic book stores this Wednesday. Steve, you're mentioning that you read a ton of stuff this week. It's not normally like you. Is everything okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing, but literally for the first time in a while, within a week, read everything that I bought at Funky Town.
Wow.
So, and weirdly, even more weird, none of it was on my pull. Like I bought three books.
That's great.
And none of them were on my pull, and I actually read all of them. So
congratulations.
With an awesome cover, X-Men Doomsday,
that is really cool.
Yeah, it's leading up to Days of Future Past, or Days of Future Past, Doomsday #1. Good book, really brings Kitty to the forefront.
Awesome.
Who, I mean, now Kate Pride,
Kate,
is it's really well done in bringing her right back to the fore of she's kind of the narrator of the story, which is even better. And it's looking at the lead up into what happened in Days of Future Past. So anyone who's familiar with the X-Men should probably understand that at least. So you figure it out. Hunger and the Dusk.
Oh, interesting.
Saw the cover, was randomly I guess grabbed my attention. It's an IDW imprint. G. Willow Wilson.
Oh,
so
Poison Ivy.
Yep. And Ms. Marvel fan.
Yeah, lots of other things.
So G. Willow Wilson, Chris Wildgoose, and Miss Sasek on an indie imprint that's kind of a D&D-esque romp, which is not what I expected and cool at the same time. So
nice.
Definitely recommend that. And the gem of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Stranger Things crossover.
Oh, you did it.
I did.
Awesome.
I saw it and I was like, I'll give it a shot. Works extremely well with the 80s theme because it is not your not your Saturday morning cartoon turtles. It threw me off at first because the cover has a red bandanaed turtle on it, but they're wielding katanas.
Oh.
And then I had the moment of realization of like, oh wait, this is Eastman and Laird's, like, because
Original.
Stranger Things is in the 80s, it's the OG turtles from
Of the
like the
80s,
Eastman and
yeah.
Laird comics so the Hawkins kids go to New York and
cool.
end up finding demogorgons in the sewer, or demodogs in the sewer. And you know,
Hilarious.
leads them to find the turtles, and one thing leads to another, and
That's awesome.
it was good enough that I will probably pick up issue 2.
Wow.
So
Wow. Okay.
actually, all 3 of them
Great.
were good reads. So
Nice. Well, congrats on getting through a pull list.
yeah. How about you? Anything on your neck of the woods?
I think I read some stuff that came out like 2 weeks ago. I haven't caught up
This
with.
is the most up to date on comics I've been in years.
Yeah, I am falling way behind, so I'm gonna put in some time this week and read a bunch of stuff for sure. But no, I read this. I read Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder.
There you go.
definitely read that one. Let's gonna cruise through some one shots and wrap up. I feel like we're gotta be close to an hour and a half, right? At this point.
Yeah, 1 hour and 26 minutes currently.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Sorry, people. I mean, thank you for listening.
We apologize for talking at you.
Yeah. Hey, like we said, it's gonna be the last. We're assuming it's gonna be the last big week of nerd news for a while. So, might as well go out with a bang. Marvel and EA's Cliffhanger Games have announced a new Black Panther game. It's going to be a third-person, single-player Black Panther game with all new original story currently in development. That is all of the information that exists. It's just happening. This made me excited because, those Spider-Man games are fun, and the new one looks great. They teased a Wolverine game a long time ago. Then just that tiny teaser made my heart jump out of my chest in a way I hadn't felt since I was 16 for that character. And Black Panther, I think, is a great character to base a video game around.
100%.
Like he's just different from the other two enough to make it more interesting, right. I think. But also cool enough and has enough cool powers and interesting settings to just make a super fun, awesome game. Yeah. Like, I want to be running through the streets of Wakanda, chasing after Ulysses Claw or something. Like, that's going to be great. And what a great way to, like, who knows when the next time we're going to make a Black Panther movie is going to be. We're talking about everything Marvel's getting delayed. They just put out one last year. So, like, probably not getting another one for a long time. So, got to keep some Black Panther content out there other than the books. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all in for a Black Panther game.
That works. Something I'm all in for. Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures is returning with new episodes on August 2nd. So the kids show, I know if you're longtime listeners, you've heard Mike and I talk about numerous times how these studios should probably think more about putting more kids shows out. This is Star Wars' latest foray into that. Young Jedi Adventures is an animated show aimed at preschool and kindergarten age kids, taking place during the High Republic era. The first 6 episodes came out maybe 2 months ago or so. Watched them with my son. Nice, far from a deep show by any stretch, but I would take that over, Paw Patrol any day. So yeah. He was a huge fan of them, and we're excited for that coming back. It's no Bluey, but it's good.
Yeah, it's no Bluey. There were new Bluey episodes.
Yeah,
hit Disney Plus this week too.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, I meant to say this at the top of the episode when we were doing business, but you just reminded me while we're shouting out our sponsor, Funky Town Comics and Vinyl. If you are in the Syracuse area, you should know that Funky Town Comics is sponsoring what they're calling a library Comic-Con. First one ever at the Solvay Public Library. It's going to be like a one-night event. It is, what is the date here?
July 31st.
July 31st at 6 p.m. Solvay Public Library. Fun one-night event where each kid is given 5 tickets to quote-unquote purchase a bunch of fun reading material and art. Solvay Public Library and Funky Town Comics and Vinyl with special guest star comic artist Chris Bruner will be hosting the event. Solve Public Library, meant for ages pre-K through 18, encouraging, just reading and stuff through the community. There's going to be a Mario Kart tournament. Winners getting a prize for that, and cosplay is encouraged. So if you have a kid and want to expose them to comics or just more reading in general, or just looking for something to do with your kid on July 31st, you can check out the Library Comic-Con at Solve Public Library, hosted by Funky Town Comics.
I know we'll be there.
So we will definitely be there. Yeah. Last one shot for tonight. James Gunn has confirmed that Doom Patrol Season 4 Part 2 will still be aired. It's been a while since Doom Patrol Part 1 came out. And I wasn't panicking, but I was starting to question when we're not getting anything about Part 2. And Titans Part 1 and 2 already came out, and that show's over. Doom Patrol is the much better show, and no news about it. Apparently, James Gunn was getting a lot of questions. He was responding to people on threads saying, people have asked me this a few times this morning. I'm not sure what it refers to. I'm neck deep in Superman and Creature Commandos, not focused on day-to-day TV scheduling. But I can't imagine a world where completed episodes are not going to be released. Well, James, you should look back at the news about when your boss, David Zaslav, took over Warner Brothers, and then you might be able to imagine the fact that things that are completed are not getting released, because he did that a bunch. And, that's why we're asking this question. But then later he came back to the same platform and said, I now have confirmation, as I surmised, Doom Patrol episodes are absolutely not being shelved, even though the premiere date for the next shows haven't been announced to the public. So still coming. We don't know when, but they're still coming. Along with Harley Quinn episodes are coming, I think, later this summer. And so that's still happening, which is good news for fans of that show. This is the one thing, for some reason when I was reading that, I thought of this when we were talking about the Flash bombing and losing Warner Brothers like $200 million or something like that. Remember when they canceled Batgirl because they thought it was unreleasable, and they thought it was going to damage the DC brand? And instead they put all their chips behind a movie that is now the biggest flop in the history of Warner Brothers. Interesting. Just interesting. That's all I'm saying. Maybe they should just put out the Batman movie instead.
Well,
movie with Batman in it, I mean. But whatever.
They did put out the movie with Batman in it.
They did. You're right. They put out a movie with 2 Batman in it. 3. 4. A lot. A lot of Batman.
All of the Batman.
Small spoiler for the Flash. There's a lot of Batman in it. Various levels of participation. Anyway, I think that's all we got. But despite it being after 11 o'clock, Steve and I are so dedicated to this that we are going to record a second episode after this. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're going to do a quick, and I'm saying quick because I'm tired.
Same.
A quick recap of Secret Invasion episode 4. And the other reason it'll be quick is that I watched it Wednesday and I don't remember too much about it. So we'll kind of blaze through it just to keep that up. So stay tuned for that. If you're watching live, thank you, and stay tuned. If you're just listening, look in your feed for the Secret Invasion recap. And that's all we got, Steve, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it is. Feel free to leave us a review at Apple Podcasts or on YouTube or wherever you're watching your podcatcher of choice. Appreciate it. It helps us, trick the computer into telling more people about us. We're all about tricking the computer here. AI is overrated when it comes to producing things like this. So we got to keep rolling. If you want to get hold of us, multiverseport@gmail.com, multiverseport.com, Multiverse Report on almost all of the socials, depending on what iteration of Twitter you feel like talking to this week.
Yep. So that's it for now. So until next time, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the multiverse.